Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we are here with our 3 trophies for podcasting excellence. You can see those right behind us, right there. One of them we got for the Michigan coverage we did. One of them we did for the Ohio State coverage. And the third one's not labeled, so I don't know.
That's coverage to be determined. They're just presuming that we're going to win it, which is a safe presumption.
It doesn't say bold prediction, so I can safely say what it's not for.
Anyway, welcome to while we're recording this is day 2 of Big Ten Media Days. Ohio State is here today. And the topic I wanted to talk about, Tom, is what are the possibilities that the 3 guys that we talked to today are first-team All-Americans? Because do you remember who we talked to last year?
I will say yes, as long as you have absolutely no follow-up questions.
I will tell you all 3 turned out to be first-team All-Americans.
Okay. Was Jeremiah Smith there last year? Yes. I feel like it was newsworthy. Last year, I believe it was 3 guys who none of them were old enough to check into a hotel room.
Kitchen. Right,
no. 3 people who were not old enough to check into a hotel room. I remember that. So it was Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Smith, and
one of the other 19 All-Americans on last year's team.
Yeah, it doesn't really narrow it down all that much.
Third-year player. No longer with the team.
Yeah.
A Caleb of some sort.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They did hold Caleb Downs in somewhat high regard. I forgot about that he was liked and respected within the program. Yes, okay.
Is that because you've already moved on to the Jaylen McClain era?
Yeah, I mean, name an Ohio State safety. Jaylen McClain. I can't think of any others ever.
Well, and let's start off with Jaylen McClain, he is here today with Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin. And sure, we'll get to Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith coming up. But Jaylen McClain, the way the coaches talk about him, the way his teammates talk about him, the way that we've seen a little bit of him. We've seen him, he started all of last year, started a couple games as a true freshman, but we haven't really seen him unleashed yet. I think a lot of the defense last year was designed for Caleb Downs to go do what he wanted. This year with no Caleb Downs, that gives Matt Patricia more opportunity to do stuff with Jaylen McClain, more opportunity for Jaylen McClain to do stuff. A lot of it's going to come down to attention and knowing his name. And I think you could already just start the narrative in terms of, well, this guy is replacing Caleb Downs, and that will help, but it also creates this level of judgment that he has to meet.
Well, and that's like an unfair benchmark. It's like being the second kid, which I couldn't relate as the oldest. But if you're the second kid, and
it's the oldest kid, they did not get it correct, and so they kept trying until they did. I was the youngest.
Then they're like, no, I think we're done here. It's
never again.
Won't make that mistake again. Yeah, the first one goes through, and they were on the honor roll. Why aren't you on the honor roll like they were? Or you're on the honor roll, but not on the high honor roll. Why weren't you on the high honor roll like your older sibling? Like that, it feels like Caleb Downs is going to be remembered with this, he was talked about with this angelic glow around him even while he was at Ohio State. Now that he's gone, it's going to be, you remember Caleb Downs? He was the best. Everyone else, they can't be the best because Caleb Downs was the best. That's going to be a hard standard to live up to. But it's also, all of this is going to be true of all of these guys. These guys are all going to have opportunities to, if they play well early in the season, you show out in that Texas game, then All-American voters are going to go, oh, yes, I remember that guy. He was the guy who had the interception, or he was the guy who had 150 yards receiving, or whatever it was, in that Texas game. Jaylen McClain is someone who he's certainly not the person I think is the most likely to be a first-team All-American out of this group. Do voters get fatigue voting for certain positions and certain schools? I feel like Jeremiah Smith has maybe suffered a little bit from this with the Blitnikoff Award, where he very easily could have won it either of the last 2 years, but it's we've given this to an Ohio State receiver. We're always talking about Ohio State receivers. Let's talk about someone else. It feels like that's kind of factors in, too. You might just have a little bit of Ohio State safety fatigue.
Well, and I think that's where it's up to Jaylen to get past that, to play past that. And you mentioned this angelic speaking of Caleb Downs. I think there's some devilish speaking about Jaylen McClain around the program in terms of what he could be for the defense. So that's one guy to keep your eye on. The next guy we could probably just do an entire show on in terms of Julian Sayin and being an All-American. The last first-team All-American for Ohio State at quarterback, Tom. It's like you've had some tangential, like you've had like this writer, this magazine did this. It does not happen often.
It doesn't happen often, no. And
Troy Smith, maybe.
I'm thinking back, and boy, it feels like the Ohio State quarterback wins the Silver Football Award as the Big Ten's best player, like period, full stop, best player, about every other year. But first team All-American, C.J. Stroud, I don't think did it.
It's going to be either it's Troy Smith, which he did do it.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago. Or then you go to Dwayne Haskins, because J.T. Barrett never did it. Dwayne Haskins and C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, those three. And they were never like, I don't believe any of them have a tree in Buckeye Grove. So the idea that it's tough for an Ohio State quarterback to do it, despite being this is the golden age of Ohio State quarterbacks, but it's also the golden age of college football quarterbacks. And so Justin Fields is competing against Trevor Lawrence, and all of these guys have other elite peers that they're competing against. So the idea that Julian Sayin could do it this year, I will remind you, he is the lone returning Heisman finalist. Like, he should be the favorite. He's been listed among the favorites in terms of player rankings this year. Do you see him being a first-team All-American?
Well, our friends at Sports Reference inform me that Troy Smith is the only Ohio State player to be a consensus first-team All-American as a quarterback. So I'm going to say possible, absolutely. Likely, no, not particularly, because you've got so many other, this is a spot where there's only one. Mm-hmm. So odds are the answer is it's going to be someone else somehow.
I mean, not even just consensus, but there could be four different
there could be. And I think we've sort of projected he's going to have a better year this year. The stats are probably going to be a little bit better this year. They were already very good in a lot of ways last year. I think he, there has been enough discussion about he's going to make some plays with his legs maybe, and so that opens up some opportunities to have a Heisman moment or a All-American kind of moment in a different kind of way. I think he is certainly, we're somewhere between plausible and likely. I don't think we're to likely right now, but I can absolutely see it. It's a possibility, but I don't look at Julian Sayin and say likely first team. I think he's likely deserving, likely in the conversation, almost certainly in the conversation, but I don't assume that just based on history here.
I think if he's the first team All Big Ten quarterback, he's got better odds of being the first team, because he's going to be competing with Dante Moore to be that All-American, also that first team All Big Ten quarterback.
And I mean,
Jaden Maiava, there's other guys in there.
Those guys, yes, but also I feel like people could make up their mind on this week 2 when it's Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin, and if Arch Manning has a big night, then you're going to have, it's like the Notre Dame Miami thing a year ago where it's like, well, yes, it was Monday night or Sunday night of Labor Day weekend, but it's a head-to-head competition, and you saw it on the field. How can you possibly vote for? You could have one of those guys not eliminated, but sort of with a big dark mark on their record, just having lost that game, even if they don't play particularly badly.
We kind of made up our mind on Arch Manning after that game. Now, he continued to prove the opinions correct that it downgraded him. So one game can certainly set the narrative. Jeremiah Smith feels like he's the free space.
Yeah.
And the people who don't make him All-American, even they're just like the contrarians. Growing up in Northwest Ohio, those are the Michigan fans.
Yeah, you're being a tryhard if you're not voting for Jeremiah Smith as a first-team All-American. If he's healthy, you kind of know what you're going to get there.
And if he produces,
but even if the numbers are down a little bit, why would the numbers be down a little bit? Well, because he's probably drawing 2 and 3 guys. I mean, we saw this with Marvin Harrison a few years ago, where it was like, well, Marvin Harrison didn't have very big numbers. It was like, yes, well, they had 2 guys and also had a nickel sort of shaded over there, and so yes, if you've got 3 guys around you, you can't always. Now, there was the play in the Rose Bowl against Oregon where there were 3 defenders around him, and he still caught the ball. But you can be an incredibly impactful player, and it doesn't always show up as just like, stat sheet go burr.
He will have enough plays, certainly have enough touches to where you can justify it. But if he doesn't have the most, people are going to be like, well, I thought you're Jeremiah Smith. Why don't you have the most of this and most of that? And it's like, well, if you just play me in one-on-one, I would.
Right, yeah.
If you would play me even up. So looking at these three, and you're saying, safety fatigue and the lack of quarterback, or the difficulty in being a quarterback, who do you think is most likely between Jaylen McClain and Julian Sayin? Because to me, it's a pretty good question, because obviously, well, it's Julian Sayin. He's the quarterback. But it's like, well, there's 5 or 6 other quarterbacks that are going to garner that kind of attention.
Yeah, I think, man, I think those two are very close. I think those two are very much in the same sort of bracket here, where Jeremiah Smith, I assume I would be a little surprised if Jeremiah Smith was not a first-team All-American. Jaylen McClain and Julian Sayin, possible, deserving, but not likely necessarily to me. I'm going to say Jaylen McClain is the second, because I think you're going to have the quarterback position is so narrative driven that's going to be one of those things they're talking about on College Game Day, and that can sort of drive the conversation and push voters who are just sort of like, well, like there are going to be voters. This is going to work in Ohio State's favor in some cases, where it's like, if you haven't been paying particularly close attention, sort of the default answer is Jeremiah Smith at the wide receiver position. Quarterback, I think that could get driven in a narrative way, where it's, who are the people on TV talking about? Safety, I think, is going to be a little bit more of a do your own homework kind of thing, and that can be stats, that can be, and because I do think he's going to have a pretty diverse stat sheet, where he's going to be up in run support at times and be, have some tackles for loss, maybe have some sacks, but also have some interceptions, but also have just some highlight reel plays.
The interesting thing about Jaylen McClain, he can't have Caleb Downs' stats and he won't be an All-American with Caleb Downs' stats, because Caleb Downs' stats last year were like, they're fine. Yeah. But it was, one, the name recognition and everybody raving about him since he was a true freshman. But also, as we talked about with him, like he's like Jazz. You get it's the plays that you don't see that he doesn't make, because he's already taking stuff away. Jaylen McClain will need to be the stat sheet stuffer to get this, and I think he's going to have a chance to do that. So, what do you guys think? Give us your likelihood of All-Americans in there. Is Tom way off that Julian Sayin cannot be an All-American? Let us know. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and continue to find us over at BuckeyeInsiders.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.